The sardius stone is the ruby, or the blood, the consciousness of that which flows through the soul body. Just as blood passes through the physical form, all divine powers pass through the soul body. That's your sixth level of consciousness. That soul body is deathless. It's the fullness, the fruition of your knowledge that thou shalt not kill. The sixth commandment comes to life as your deathless soul body. The knowledge of your eternal soul body. There's nothing to kill. Your body itself is beyond death. Now, the body you should be living in, the body that yourself inhabits, and this is your sardius stone, the first intimation of life eternal in an eternal body. Through it is the perfect will of the perfect Father, the perfect wisdom, the perfect power. And the perfection of that body is ever maintained. This is the truth of our being. It is the truth of all those who allegedly have passed out of this earth. This is their body. It's the body of all those who are still unborn into the mortal appearance. As they appear into this world, they will be aware of this invisible body if they are born to parents who have the consciousness, or they will have to learn to become aware if their parents do not have the consciousness. If their parents limit them to the size of a crib, they will have to struggle through into the new consciousness just as we have had to do. But wherever an enlightened parent sees there the infinite invisible body, that will be the developed consciousness of that child. Like the little boy who fell out of the tree. Told his mother he was all right, it was his body that hurt. He knew something better than just being a little formal physical form. And he said it quite easily and naturally. These divine thoughts that run through children are often smashed by adults who listen to what they call the fancies of the child, when often the child, being unconditioned, is really living in the truth that the parent doesn't recognize. And by the time we get through with that child, we bring them all into conformity with our human limited ways. Thou shalt not kill. You cannot when you have attained the consciousness of the deathless body, because it is the body of all there are. There's no other. It's the eternal body of what we call the human race. It is always its own perfect self without opposite. And the knowledge of it manifests in this world as better health, less aging process, more energy and vigor, and you're a better transparency for that form when you're aware of it. I don't know who among you can feel your eternal life, your eternal body, your eternal self as a permanent dispensation, but it's not something that comes and goes only when you seem to glimpse it in some way. It's always the truth. You just leave the truth when you are not aware of it, but the truth remains. It doesn't change. And your knowledge of it engenders a kind of confidence that nothing else can. Now, only when you are aware of it does the full fruitage of it come through. And now that we are moving through the 6th level of that consciousness, we can expect fruitage to flow. And always you realize, I'm not talking about just this moment when we're discussing it. In human time, it may come to you in mid-October that you are the eternal body of Christ. And when it comes to you, you know the world has to change for you. It can't be the same again. And fruitage will pour forth that you just can't imagine. This chrysolite, the 7th stone, would go with "Thou shalt not commit adultery," the 7th commandment. And so when you have discovered, accepted, experienced, lived in the body of Christ, the invisible body of the soul, which incidentally are not quite identical, but you'll see why in a moment. I'm using them both together at this time. When this is your capacity to accept the chrysolite, or the 7th level in which you are now in the right body and not in the wrong body, is the end of all adultery. No longer are you trying to live in 2 bodies. A physical body with the hope that someday you'll live in a spiritual body. The belief in a physical body has not only diminished, but living now in the consciousness of the eternal body of soul, you move into the 7th consciousness, which is no longer committing adultery. You're in the chrysolite consciousness. You're in the one body, the undivided body. And you are really the body of everyone who walks the earth. You're not in spirit and matter. And you don't have separate selves. You're not a self apart from other selves. And you're not a self apart from God. In this one body realized, where there is no longer adultery between the belief in this body and that body, a body of spirit and a body of matter, or separated human bodies, you begin to get the first fruits of spirit in a great way, because now there's no wastage. The division having been totally overcome, all that flows is divine. It's not 50% this and 50% that. It is no division. There's no adulteration. Harmony flows without its opposite. You see, all the opposites are gone when the one body is all you live in, and then without spiritual adultery there are no opposites. There's no pain to contrast with pleasure, or evil to contrast with good. It's just an automatic thing that only the oneness can express. And because of it, you come right into the 8th level. Thou shalt not steal. With oneness expressing, with no opposites, you have it all. The fullness is flowing. The wholeness is there. The completion is there. Everything you need is there. And that's the 8th level. That's the thou shalt not steal commandment brought into its fullness. The reason they call it the barrel is because from a gem standpoint, the beryl is a very strong, tenacious mineral. It implies your capacity to know that you are self-sufficient and not to be moved by the conflict of outside appearances. In the beryl consciousness, it's I have, not I will, secure or find or get. I have, I am. The beryl consciousness is your self-sufficiency in the knowledge of your own true being. And it isn't something you decide upon, it just happens. You have no concern about being unself-sufficient. That's the 8th transparency and the 8th disciple. Somebody who's really ambitious could try to connect these up to the disciples, and maybe some of you will. The topaz is your 9th transparency. And if we match it up with the 9th commandment, you are now bearing true witness. All that has happened from the very first precious transparency through the 8th has made you a true witness in a true divine body, expressing the true qualities of the Father. You are accepting omnipotence everywhere of your being, omniscience of your being everywhere, and the omnipresence of your being. All that the Father is flowing through you. In the 9th level, you are no longer bearing false witness. You are bearing witness to the fullness of God everywhere. The chrysoprasus, the 10th, is complete release from all material limitations. You started out not coveting matter, and now you've discovered there isn't any. It's all you, all spirit. There's nothing to covet. You are released. You are free. The chrysoprasus consciousness, the 10th, is freedom in your soul. There's nothing to cling to anymore. all division has passed away, all separation, all duality. All there is, I am. That's a beautiful place to be. And when we practiced that several months ago, many beautiful things happened. All there is, I am. I'd like to tell you about one of them. It's sort of humorous, but at the same time, it shows the power of that consciousness, and I'm sure many of you have stories to match it. Bob Wright is here, and he came in from Norway a year ago, and he was fixing an outside lantern outside our house. And the timer wouldn't work. Tried, and he tried, and he tried. Wouldn't work. So he decided that I needed a new timer. And because we don't have any of those in Catalina, he mailed me one and told me to get an electrician to put it in. And I don't know what I was doing. I just wasn't ready for calling an electrician or whatever the reason was. I just never got around to it. And then one day the timer went on. And it came on at 6:30, and I was quite elated, and it went off at 6:45. It was supposed to go on and stay on till midnight. Well, that was something. At least it was coming on. So every night it began to come on 6:30, go off at 6:45. And there wasn't anything I could do about it. Then we got into this everything there is I am consciousness with the class. And one night that light at 6:30 came on. 6:45 it didn't go off. It stayed on till midnight. I thought nothing of it until it did it several more times. And then we got on to some other thing in our study, and the light didn't come on again. And so I just noted it but didn't do anything about it. And one day the four of you girls came up from Portland. And the first night, all of a sudden I noticed that light was blazing. And I mentioned it. I don't think anybody really, gave much attention to what I was saying at the time, but after the girls left, I really got curious about that light. And there was one spell where, staying in this I am all there is consciousness, I found that in 11 nights, for 9 nights, that light stayed on. And then when I got back into something else, out again. Now, it always came on when the consciousness of I am all there is was not spoken but realized. And I've noticed that in other things, but never quite that visibly, that significantly. And I'm sure that when you are able to rest in I am all there is, and get the awareness of that, things around you are going to start popping. There was another time when a typewriter went out and the right-hand spool wouldn't turn. Just no way. So what you did is type, you stopped, you took your finger and turned the spool, you type, stop. You do that for a while and you have a sore finger. But there's no one on the whole island to repair a typewriter. And so there was nothing to do about it but do it that way. And then one morning, something got me up out of bed, and it was some important inner something, and I started to go to the typewriter and type it out, and then realized the spool was turning by itself. I wasn't turning it. And then I discovered later that every time I was given something from within to type, it turned. And when I did it, of my own mind, it didn't turn. And this went on for 4 months, until the typewriter man came to the island on his one trip every 4 months, and then fixed the typewriter. I found that every time the spool turned, I didn't have to look at what I had typed. I knew it was truth. And that's why it turned. And I give you that because I was just as amazed as anyone could be, but it was consistently that way. I could not type truth without that spool turning. And most of the time it didn't turn. I think the 10th level, I didn't know I was in the chrysoprasis consciousness sometimes, but I was. And I think this 10th level is all of the 10 qualities rolled up into the one, where everything is functioning because you are unaware of anything except being. Now let's say we all were able to be in a state of I am being and come to that 10th level. That is the beginning of the next level, in which soul body is now going to be transformed into Christ body. That's the difference. It's soul body itself that is transformed in the 11th stage. Because now the Christ is beginning, you're closer to the fullness of Christ consciousness. Now all of these things that have been flowing through you are at a higher level. They're quickened even higher than you had them. The stone is called at this point the 11th stone, and that's your jacinth. So this jacinth consciousness is the soul consciousness being transformed now into its awareness of the spirit in its fullness, and the mating of the two becomes the jacinth consciousness. It's all automatic. It's just a steady flow, and it's going to lead to the amethyst. Now that you are in that divine level where soul and spirit are wedded, which was prevented because you were in soul, in spirit, and matter at one phase, and there was no wedding possible. That was divorce. Now you're ready for the final stage of homogenizing all qualities into one, and this is your Christ consciousness, the amethyst. Everything flows. You get glimpses of it, it'll fade. You get more glimpses of it, but you will remember when this beautiful thing happened, and this will be your forever goal. I am divine, let the will flow, stay with each commandment thoroughly, let the necklace of truth weave itself. Accept the presence of all 12 qualities. Even when you're up at the first, you are the Christ. And in the 12th, you know the 12th commandment. Love flows, and it's divine love. This is, his rain shineth on the just and the unjust. You cannot live outside of love, even now, or else there's no sequence. The 12th must suffuse even the first transparency and the second and third. The 12th must flow down to cover all 12. And so you come back to the first, and I am divine, I am the love of the Father expressing. 2. I am the will of the Father expressing. I am the love of the Father expressing as His will. Put the love of the Spirit of God in every commandment that you have. Fill it with love. Let love flow all the way. Accept the 12th in the first. And that is what opens each commandment and gives it a new life for you. Lazarus steps out. Mortality never was. How strange that human forms should appear to study a message of this sort. But at times, it's almost impossible that not every one of us at times have felt a measure of divinity. That little spark that we felt is the little mustard seed, but it's concealing the mustard tree. That little spark is just the tip end of your truth, your reality, and the tree is already finished. When you get a little glimpse of yourself, your divinity, you're touching something so vast that even this little glimpse itself is enough to take you all the way, if you will recognize it and believe it. We are the living light of God. Our ears may be big or small or crooked, or our faces may not be the way we'd like them to be, or our figures may be changing too rapidly to suit us, but it doesn't mean a thing. These are all world mind pictures. We are free even when we don't know we're free. We are pure when we don't know we're pure. But if we muddy up the waters with human beliefs, human emotions, human judgments and criticisms, and do not keep the love pure, this procession of the 12 gemstones of a pure consciousness cannot shine the pure inner light. You must love your enemy. You must love your enemy as yourself. You must forgive. I would call these the 12 temples not made with hands. The 12 soul powers. The 12 glories of the one Father, with all disciples living, performing, expressing. It looks like a better way to live than the human way. And if we can get this far, I see no reason why we can't go much further. So I'm going to stay very close and tug at your elbow, and I surely hope you tug at mine. I know it helps me to work with you. And I know it helps you to work with your neighbor who is working on the same purpose. None of us are that strong that we could do this by ourselves. We would falter. We need somebody near to say, yes, I've been through that problem too. We need somebody to say, you can't see ahead, but I have had a glimpse of something that is there. And it is good. Don't be afraid. Move forward. We need that. We all do. I'm not going to terminate this seminar without a meditation of thank you to the Spirit of Joel that has moved through all of us at one time or another. I recognize that Spirit is ever present. To me, it was pure. To me, it is always pure. And sometimes a lot purer than I can be. And I think it is the moving force behind this class. I think it opens books for us and points and says, do this. I think it gives us assignments. And I think it fulfills those assignments. And I think the Spirit of Joel, when you recognize it as a living reality, will enable you to find the spirit of yourself. So that you can say, I and Joel are one. And I wish, too, to express gratitude to the Spirit of you. Because there was something in this seminar that was different than the previous two. The only thing I can explain about that difference is that we're all a little wiser, older, purer, more eager, more trusting, and we brought it with us. And it all homogenized itself into something of value to us. There were some tears here during one or two of the classes, and I appreciated those tears more than the laughter, because they meant that we had touched something vital in ourselves. And thirdly, I'd like to thank the human appearances of that spirit called the committee, who in my opinion have been so faithful throughout in their willingness to make every decision through the Spirit, that this class has been upheld in an aura of true love. It has all been a joyous, unforgettable thing for me, and I feel that we have made many closer friendships with each other during these beautiful 10 classes. You are the class. You are the love. You are the divinity. And wherever you walk, I walk. Joel walks. Wherever I walk, you walk. We are one self, and each one of us here must recognize that we are all that one self. As we hold on to that and expand that awareness into every village and hamlet where we go, you will find Spirit always preceding you, smoothing the way, lifting you up, and showing you the new city. We close with deep love, and thank you very much.
Thank you.